Welcome back to the fourth of the Shakespeare history plays. This week we're looking at Henry IV Part 2. It's Shakespeare's deeply reflective sequel to Henry IV Part 1, combining court politics, rebellion and Falstaff's comic world with meditations on ageing, succession and kingship. We'll move scene by scene, narrating the action, explaining its significance and weaving in a few direct quotes. But it's sadly not as well known as Henry IV Part 1, but it's an equally punchy and powerful play. So, the play begins Act 1, Scene 1 at the Palace in London. The play opens with urgency. Rumour, personified, delivers a prologue spreading half-truths and lies about the Battle of Shrewsbury. He declares, "Upon my tongue continual slanders ride, the which in every language I pronounce." Northumberland learns falsely that Hotspur still lives. Soon Lord Bardolph enters with the truth. Hotspur is indeed dead, the rebellion crushed. Northumberland collapses in grief. Where is the son of mine dead? Despite his despair, the rebels, led by the Archbishop of York, Mowbray and Hastings, plot fresh uprisings. Scene 2. A street in London. Falstaff makes his first entrance. Aged, witty and as ever corrupt, his page mocks him. He was but a man made after a supper of a cheese paring. Falstaff is summoned to the wars, but grumbles about his health. He still exults in his wit. "I'm not only witty in myself, but the cause that wit is in other men." Scene 3 at Warkworth Castle. Lady Percy, Hotspur's widow, and Lady Northumberland persuade Northumberland not to risk joining the rebels, fearing ruin. Lady Percy's grief is sharp. "Oh, yet for God's sake go not to these wars. The time was, father, that you broke your word." Northumberland promises to withdraw, a fateful decision. Rumours fly. Northumberland retreats into grief. The rebels reorganise. Falstaff re-emerges, older but still comic, and the kingdom teeters on yet more unrest. In Act 2, Scene 1, London near a tavern. Well, we know it's going to be Falstaff. Hostess Quickly, mistress of the Boar's Head Tavern, accuses Falstaff of cheating and false promises. She demands he pay his debts, and he retorts mockingly, "You lie, hostess. Bardolph never got me any colour." Justice Shallow and others enter, and Falstaff wiggles out with all his bluster. Scene 2, London at the Palace. Prince Hal appears, but less roguish than before. Warwick counsels the king that Hal will prove worthy. The prince but studies his companions like a strange tongue. This sets up Hal's future transformation. Scene 3 in York. The rebels gather. The Archbishop declares rebellion a moral duty. "We are all diseased, and with our surfeiting and wanton hours have brought ourselves into a burning fear." Yet their cause already feels shaky. Scene 4, we return to the Boar's Head Tavern. Falstaff and his page banter. Dull Tearsheet, his mistress, joins, mocking his age. "Thou whoreson little tidy Bartholomew bore pig." Their quarrels are interrupted by Pistol, brash and comic. This tavern world continues the low-life counterpoint to the court of Part 1. Act 2. We've seen the rebels solidifying their plans, Prince Hal beginning to show maturity, Falstaff's wit continuing, but his world of taverns looks increasingly sordid and failed. Act 3. Scene 1 at Westminster, in the palace. King Henry IV cannot sleep, guilt-ridden with his usurpation of Richard II's throne. O God, that one might read the book of fate. He broods on mortality. Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. He resolves that Hal must take the crown soon, fearing rebellion will destroy the kingdom before a peaceful succession. Scene 2. Gloucestershire. Justice Shallow's orchard. Falstaff arrives to recruit men for the wars. Shallow and Silence, two comical country justices, reminisce absurdly about their youth, while Falstaff mocks them in asides. If the young dace be a bait for the old pike, I see no reason in the law of nature but I may snap at him. Falstaff gleefully takes bribes to excuse men from service, even though they're able, choosing the weakest and worst recruits. Scene 3. Westminster. The King confronts Prince Hal about his behaviour, but Hal vows he will prove himself. I will redeem all this on Percy's head, and in the closing of some glorious day, be bold to tell you that I am your son. This reconciliation is delayed, but Hal's seriousness foreshadows his future. The king despairs, he's sleepless and sick. Hal begins his transformation, and throughout Act 3, we see Falstaff's corruption being exposed in the country, and a difference between the world of Falstaff and the path that Hal has chosen to follow. Act 4. Scene 1 in the rebel camp in Yorkshire. The rebels, Mowbray, Hastings and the Archbishop, prepare for battle. They discuss strategy but bicker. Hastings assures them, our army is in health, the number less than half our foes, but still is doubled ours in spirit. Scene 2 at the King's camp. Prince John, the King's second son, negotiates with the rebels. He promises their grievances will be heard, and the Archbishop agrees to disband his troops. In another part of the field, in Scene 3, we see that as soon as the rebels dismiss their soldiers, Prince John arrests them for treason. Cold and pragmatic, he declares, you shall have your desires with interests, and pardon absolute for yourselves and these. Then immediately reverses himself. The rebels are executed. Prince John justifies this deception. When love begins to sicken and decay, it useth an enforced ceremony. Scene 4. Westminster. Henry IV grows weaker. Warwick informs him the rebellion is crushed, yet the king foresees his death. O my poor kingdom, sick with civil blows. In Scene 5, we go to the king's bedchamber, and Henry IV lies dying. Prince Hal enters, and finding the crown unattended, puts it on. The king awakes furious. Dost thou so hunger for mine empty chair, that thou wilt needs invest thee with my honours, before thy hour be ripe? Hal stricken protests, I never thought to hear you speak again. Moved by Hal's sincerity, Henry blesses him as heir. He counsels, be it thy course to busy giddy minds with foreign quarrels. Soon after, Henry dies. In Act 4, we've seen the rebellion end treacherously. Henry IV has died after reconciling with Hal, leaving his son the crown and the burden of rule. In Act 5, we move to Shallow's orchard in Gloucestershire. Falstaff rejoices at Henry IV's death, convinced Prince Hal will now reward him. Let us be indulgent to times of mortality, and let this caitiff be hanged. He dreams of favour under the new king. His old pal will look after him. Scene 2, Westminster. The Lord Chief Justice, once stern with Hal, fears dismissal. Warwick reassures him that he'll be okay. Scene 3 in Gloucestershire. Falstaff dines merrily with Shallow and Silence, already planning how to exploit his new influence. Do you set down your name in the scroll of youth that are written down old with all the characters of age? Scene 4. A street in London. As news of the new king's coronation spreads, Falstaff hurries to court to greet his sweet prince. Scene 5. Westminster, the actual coronation. King Henry V, formerly Hal, enters in regal state. Falstaff cries out, God save thy grace, King Hal, my royal Hal. But the new king turns cold. I know thee not, old man, fall to thy prayers, how ill white hairs become a fool and a jester. He banishes Falstaff and his companions. Till then I banish thee on pain of death, as I have done the rest of my misleaders. Falstaff is stunned. The Chief Justice and others admire the king's resolve. This is the English, not the Turkish court. No Amurath, and Amurath succeeds. But Harry. The play ends with the promise of a new era, Henry V following directly on from Henry IV. Act 5 has shown us Falstaff's dream of powers being crushed by Henry V's rejection. The crown passes into strong and reliable hands. The play closes on a transformation, ending the arc for his character that's run throughout part 1 and 2, and severing his links to the old comic world. There will be no Falstaff in the life of Henry V. Overall, the play moves from decay and disorder to renewal. In Act 1 there are rumours and rebellion spread. Falstaff re-enters, never a good sign. Act 2, the tavern world continues. The rebels plan, but Hal matures. Act 3, the king despairs of mortality. Falstaff corrupts in the country. And in Act 4, Prince John tricks and executes the rebels. Henry IV dies reconciled with Hal. Act 5, Falstaff expects favour, but is banished. Hal becomes King Henry V. It's less a play of battles than of decline, succession, and moral change. It's the end of the coming of age for Hal. Key themes in the play: mortality and kingship. Henry IV, uneasy lies the head that wears a crown. Henry V, Hal, I know thee not, old man, fall to thy prayers. The theme of rebellion and treachery. Prince John, You shall have desires with interest, and pardon absolute for yourselves and these. The world of Falstaff. Falstaff, I am not only witty in myself, but the cause that wit is in other man. And hostess quickly, thou whoreson little tidy Bartholomew boar pig. Succession and renewal. Henry the Fourth, be it thy course to busy giddy minds with foreign quarrels, something which Henry the Fifth does do. Warwick, this is the English, not the Turkish court, not Amurath, and Amurath succeeds. Whilst Henry the Fourth Part 1 and Part 2 at times showed a Hal who wasn't appropriate and ready to rule, we end Henry the Fourth Part 2 with a Henry the Fifth crowned and ready to lead England forward. It lays the foundations for the play we're talking about next week. So like and subscribe and come back next week for the iconic Henry V with the invasion of France and the Battle of Agincourt.